Are you all right? If you keep standing there like that, you'll catch a cold." I called out to the back that somehow carried a sense of nostalgia. She slowly turned around. At that moment, I was struck by such a strong impact that I forgot to breathe. The manager here told me to." "What?" Along with the pouring rain, I dropped the thoughts I had just been considering. Then I asked her, "You mean the manager in this company told you to wait outside in this rain?" She gave a small, wry smile and nodded. It's my fault. I couldn't explain properly, and I ended up making him angry. So, Suddenly, she burst into tears. At that moment, an indescribable anger welled up from deep within me. My name is Ryan, and I turned 48 this year. When I look at the peacock flowers, I can't help but imagine the person I once loved. The one I will never meet again. My first love, who had lustrous black hair swaying in the wind, large jet black eyes, and an innocent smile. Time has remained frozen since that moment. Great job. I'm glad we managed to finish this season's harvest safely. Wiping the sweat with a hand towel, I looked at the golden ears of rice. The farming couple thanked me repeatedly, handing me not an ice-cold beer, but some chilled barley tea. As I downed it in one go, I felt not only my throat refresh, but also my energy returning. It was autumn, but since it was still quite hot, I was helping the local rice farmers with their harvest. Of course, I didn't take any payment. It's because they often share other crops with me and know that I live alone, so they sometimes cook for me. Oh no, it's fine. The wife handed me a brown envelope, while the waband brought over a bunch of produce. They weren't my real parents, but since we'd known each other for almost 8 years, I regard them like my own parents. I no longer had anyone I could call mom or dad. My parents both passed away when I was young. My mother was frail since birth and passed away due to complications during childbirth. My father raised me on his own after that, but 3 years after my mother's death, he was found collapsed at home by a delivery man. They said it was heart failure. That's what I was told, but since I was still a child, they didn't let me see my father's body, so the truth remains uncertain. After that, I was taken in by my paternal grandparents and lived in the countryside. The paternal grandparents who took me in were known as landlords in the area. Apparently, they used to be wealthy. Perhaps because of that, I grew up in their mansion-like house without any financial difficulties, eventually graduating from college and entering the workforce. And now, here I am. Although I refused the money, I accepted the product, and as I reached out, the husband muttered, "A guy as considerate as you, how come you aren't married yet?" I gave a wry smile. "It's not that I can't, it's just that I don't want to. I've had a few chances, but I've turned them all down." As I said that with a light laugh, both of them furrowed their brows in concern. Then they started suggesting they could introduce me to a good woman they knew, but I politely declined. With how I still felt, I knew I couldn't get involved with anyone. After finishing the rice harvest, I made curry using the vegetables I received. The potatoes and carrots, cooked until tender, absorbed the flavor of the roux, making it delicious. I enjoyed the meal while a comedy show played on the TV in the background when suddenly, the phone rang. Why all of a sudden? I paused my meal and answered the phone, and the person on the other end said, "The time has come." Then, 1 month later, when I look up, all I can see are buildings. I moved through the bustling city streets. When I lived in the countryside, the sky above was always filled with nature. In the morning, I could hear birds chirping. During the summer, towering cumulonimbus clouds filled the sky, and in the evening, the crows flew back to the mountains, calling out against the crimson sky. But here, there was a suffocating feeling that didn't allow for that kind of connection. Even though it was already October, it was still hot and humid. Maybe it was due to the Pacific high-pressure system, but although the temperature itself wasn't that high, the sticky, humid air made people uncomfortable. Between the buildings, I could see a sliver of sky covered by dark, heavy clouds. The forecast said the cloudy weather would continue, with heavy rain expected from tonight into the early morning. Perhaps because of this, no one was carrying rain gear. I had brought an umbrella just in case, but it turned out I needed it sooner than expected. Raindrops began to fall from the sky, little by little. Soon, they formed a swarm, drenching the unprepared city dwellers. In the countryside, especially in the mountains, the weather changes quickly. Even though I had only lived there for about 8 years, I had learned to sense shifts in the weather. Opening my umbrella, I hurried toward a particular building. By the time I reached my destination, the rain had intensified. Then I spotted a lone woman standing in front of the company building. She remained motionless, as if waiting for something, standing in the rain. Are you all right? If you keep standing there like that, you'll catch a cold. I called out to the back that somehow carried a sense of nostalgia. She slowly turned around. At that moment, I was struck by such a strong impact that I forgot to breathe. The manager here told me to. What? Along with the pouring rain, I dropped the thoughts I had just been considering. Then I asked her, "You mean the manager in this company told you to wait outside in this rain?" She gave a small, wry smile and nodded. "Ah, yes. He said that if I wanted the contract, I should stand here until tomorrow. So, I've been here." I couldn't help but feel a mix of emotions. "I see. Could you tell me the name of the manager who said that?" I'm affiliated with this company. I don't want to believe someone would do something like this, but I am not doubting you. Please, could you tell me?" She hesitated for a moment before answering that it was the manager from the sales department, named Thomas. It's my fault. I couldn't explain properly, and I made him angry. So, Suddenly, she burst into tears. At that moment, an indescribable anger welled up from deep within me. "Thank you for telling me. Please wait here for a moment." "Oh, take this. Here you go." Not caring about getting wet myself, I handed her my umbrella. She hesitated, but I gently placed the handle in her white hand and moved to a covered area. Then, without delay, I made a call. "Please gather all the board members immediately." "A problem?" "Yes, that's right. This situation cannot be overlooked, so we need to hold an urgent board meeting." "Yes, thank you." After finishing the call, I returned to where she was, still looking troubled. Whether it was tears or raindrops, transparent droplets trailed down her cheeks. I unconsciously reached out to wipe them away, but then I realized what I was doing and pulled my hand back. Are you okay?" "I'm okay." Amid the awkward atmosphere, I cleared my throat and said, "Please go home for today." When I told her to go home, she looked visibly hurt. I hurriedly corrected myself. "Sorry, that was poorly phrased. I will take care of the rest, so please don't worry. I will also contact you regarding the contract details as soon as I have more information. Could you give me your business card, if you do not mind?" As I handed her my business card, she hesitantly offered hers in return. Without realizing it, I glanced at her name. Kimberly Smith was the name of the beautiful woman standing before me. "Kimberly, please take care on your way home." Oh, and about the umbrella, it was just a convenience store purchase, so there's no need to return it. I will see you later. With that, I turned my back to her. After finishing the board meeting, I headed straight to the sales department office. The moment I entered, I felt the tension in the air. The employees looked exhausted, glued to their computers, not even noticing my presence. I immediately walked up to a specific person. "Thomas!" He turned around sluggishly, looking at me with a hint of irritation. Dark circles were faintly visible under his eyes, and he looked physically unwell. His messy hair seemed hastily styled. If someone told me he was the head of the sales department, I would have a hard time believing it, but I wanted to think that he at least tidied himself up when meeting with clients. I wanted to believe that. "What do you want?" He responded with a sullen tone. It wasn't that he didn't recognize me. He was just annoyed that his pace had been disrupted. Still, I continued without concern. "I have noticed inappropriate behavior toward Kimberly, the client representative. I have a few questions regarding that matter." Thomas sneered at me. "Before that, who are you? Isn't introducing yourself the most basic etiquette? A guy nearly 50, not knowing that? How pathetic." I clenched my trembling fist and bit my lip to suppress my anger. "Apologies. My name is Ryan. I was stationed at a branch office in the countryside. but I was recently ordered to return. It's been 8 years since I last worked here." Hearing that, Thomas let out a crude, mocking laugh. "Oh, I see. So you're just some deadweight employee returning from the countryside. And you just happened to run into Kimberly, huh? I don't care who you are, but don't go meddling with useless self-righteousness. That's how things work here. One day, you'll get caught up in it too." He laughed again, loud and careless. Meanwhile, the other employees didn't even glance in my direction, seemingly too overwhelmed by their workload. They acted as if it had nothing to do with them. It seemed that the sales department was in such a dire situation. The root cause was most likely Thomas, standing right in front of me. I have no interest in internal power struggles or promotions, but forcing a client representative to wait outside in the rain and telling her that standing there until tomorrow would secure the contract. How could you even say something like that? Thomas scoffed again. So what? It's just a small company, nothing significant from our perspective. I just gave her a simple suggestion to wait until tomorrow as an easy way to secure the contract. He should be grateful. I was utterly shocked that someone like him was the head of the sales department. It was beyond absurd. Realizing that talking to him was pointless, I left without another word. None of the other employees even noticed me leaving. It was hard to believe that just 8 years away from the main office had changed things so drastically. I felt a pang of disappointment. However, when I asked around later, I learned that Thomas wasn't always like this. I couldn't help but wonder what had turned him into such an arrogant person. But that could wait. Right now, I needed to deal with Kimberly's situation. I dialed the number from the business card she gave me. A little while later, we met at a nearby restaurant. "Sorry for calling you out on short notice." "No, it's fine. Actually, I wanted to return the umbrella I borrowed the other day." Although I told her she didn't need to return it, Kimberly, being so considerate, made sure to clean the umbrella before giving it back. That gesture left me feeling conflicted. Memories from the past resurfaced. That day too, it had been pouring rain, despite the weather forecast saying otherwise. "Again? You always do this, don't you?" Saying that, I offered her my umbrella. But instead of taking it, she stood next to me, giving me a mischievous smile. I couldn't help but laugh along with her. "Seriously again? You're hopeless. All right then, treat me to that new sundae at the cafe that just opened." When I joked like that, she nodded confidently, as if saying, "Leave it to me." When was that? It was probably a memory from high school. Every time it rained, she would say she forgot her umbrella and walk home next to me. I could never forget the profile of her face, even now. Brian?" Lost in my memories, I suddenly heard her voice and snapped back to reality. "Oh, sorry. I was just remembering something from a long time ago. Anyway, about the other day, I want to apologize properly." As I bowed my head, Kimberly hurriedly shook hers. "No, please don't apologize. You didn't do anything wrong, Ryan. Actually, I was happy you stood up for me back then." From what I heard, it turns out that Kimberly and I are the same age. We are both single. That said, Kimberly was once married and is now a single mother, living with her high school-aged daughter. My ex-husband and I went through a lot, and we divorced 2 years ago. He dipped into our daughter's education funds, cheated with another woman, and then disappeared. I haven't received any alimony or child support. My daughter dreams of becoming a nurse, so I need money to make that happen. I used to work part-time, but now I'm a full-time employee. Still, things aren't going well. Kimberly spoke with a self-deprecating smile. Hearing that made me feel even more sorry. This whole situation stemmed from our side, and she was not at fault. Thinking I needed to explain things properly, I arranged to meet with her today. I sincerely apologize for the trouble caused by Thomas from our company. I bowed deeply, almost touching the table. Kimberly looked flustered and waved her hands. "Please, don't do that." The root of the problem was Thomas's biased perspective. It seems he looked down on you simply because you're a woman. In this industry, it's still common for men to take the lead, even though more women are entering the field lately. Despite that, Thomas dismissed you due to your gender and lack of experience, and even went as far as forcing you to wait outside. We truly regret the inappropriate treatment and the discomfort it caused. As I bowed again, Kimberly seemed at a loss for words. remaining silent. It was lunchtime, and the restaurant was bustling. I wondered how much time had passed. Kimberly let out a small chuckle. "You're really serious, Ryan. When I got your business card and saw that you worked at a branch office, I figured there must be a reason you came to the main office. Yet, you went out of your way to stand up for me, even if it meant going against Thomas, the department head. Please, don't trouble yourself over me. Just focus on what's best for you." She smiled as she said that, and for a moment her face overlapped with a girl I used to share umbrellas with. That made my emotions even more tangled. After softly thanking me, Kimberly placed money for her coffee on the table and left. A little while later, when I returned to the main office, I noticed a commotion. It was coming from the sales department. Peeking inside, I heard raised voices as if an argument was going on. "Excuse me." Pushing through the onlookers, I approached the center of the commotion, just as a loud shout rang out. "What do you know? You quit on your own, and now you're just showing up out of nowhere." It was Thomas's voice. But his angry words were not directed at me. He was yelling at a man standing right in front of him. "Why are you here anyway?" "Kyle." The man called Kyle continued to stare at Thomas with a calm, unwavering expression. I couldn't help but call out, "Kyle." Kyle turned around, and when he saw me, his face broke into a smile. "Oh, Ryan, it's been a while." Actually, I was the one who contacted Kyle. Let me explain how that happened. After the confrontation with Thomas, I called Kyle. He was once considered the most promising candidate for head of the sales department at the main office and had been Thomas's former colleague and rival. During the 8 years I spent at the branch office, Kyle was one of the people who supported me. I met Thomas, like you mentioned, but honestly, he seemed tense, almost unreasonably aggressive. On the other end of the line, Kyle let out a thoughtful hum and said he would take care of it, asking me to wait. And now, he had actually come to the main office. Most likely, while I was away, Kyle had approached Thomas and talked to him about various things. In response, it seemed that Thomas had snapped back in frustration. However, Kyle remained calm and handled the situation with composure. "Hey, take it easy. I didn't run away. I just requested a transfer because my parents, who live there, weren't doing well." Thomas muttered under his breath, "Don't give me that crap. Do you have any idea what people said about me after you suddenly transferred? They said I didn't earn my promotion, that I only got ahead because my rival left. Ever since you quit the race, I've been stuck feeling miserable." In short, Thomas felt resentful toward Kyle because his promotion was seen as an earned once his rival left. No matter how much Kyle tried to calm him down, Thomas wouldn't listen. The other sales employees seemed uneasy, unsure of how to handle the situation. That's why I knew I had to take charge. During the recent board meeting, it was decided that Thomas is unfit to be a manager. Therefore, he will be demoted. The sudden declaration caught everyone off guard, and they all turned to look at me in shock. Kyle gave a troubled smile, while Thomas's face flushed with anger. "You've got to be kidding. Who do you think you are to say something like that? You're just some guy from a branch. I'm going to be the company president starting next year." The room fell silent, as if the noise from earlier had been a lie. Thomas stood there, mouth agape, while Kyle remained as composed as ever. "Kyle helped me a lot at the branch office. He didn't drop out of your so-called promotion race, and he simply chose his own path. You, on the other hand, got caught up in rumors, hurt yourself, and then blamed Kyle and others without realizing the damage you were causing. Isn't it time you face the truth? What are you talking about? The current company president, my grandfather, is hospitalized. I'm his successor. But more importantly, take a good look around." At my words, Thomas looked around the room. He finally seemed to notice. What is this? Everyone looks so exhausted." "Hey, Nicholas, didn't you used to complain about middle-age weight gain?" "Henry, what's with that worn-out face?" He finally understood. "As the leader of the sales department, you created this atmosphere. Your frustration over losing your rival and your bitterness toward others turned your team into this. You pushed your subordinates to the breaking point, trying to prove yourself with numbers, but it only made things worse. Do you really think you can continue as the department head in this state?" Thomas was at a loss for words and fell silent. That silence was his answer. I learned a lot while working at the branch office. A company isn't just a structured organization, and it's about building relationships with the local community, respecting clients and subcontractors, and most importantly, pursuing the path you believe in. And when you're wrong, your colleagues will guide you back on track. You're so overwhelmed that you can't even see that. Maybe it's time you put down the burden of being a manager. As Thomas stood there with a blank expression, the employees he had called out earlier approached him. "We're here to support you. We all know how hard you've been working, Thomas," they said, offering warm, encouraging words. When I first stepped into the sales department, I felt tension, but not a sense of resentment. The way each employee was absorbed in their work conveyed a sense of dedication, driven by their respect for their superior. The employees here respect you, Thomas. It wasn't because of you that some people left the department. They left for unavoidable reasons, like pregnancy, childbirth, or caregiving. Has anyone actually quit because they hated working for you? When I asked that, the sales employees shook their heads. At that, Thomas collapsed to his knees. So, I was just overthinking things on my own, getting frustrated and dragging everyone else down. Thomas, looking shocked, spoke in a voice as faint as a mosquito's buzz, and Kyle crouched down to meet his gaze, gently placing a hand on his shoulder. "I'm sorry, Thomas. Not even for a moment did I forget the time when we were good rivals here. When I learned that my sudden transfer caused misunderstandings and made things hard for you, I felt genuinely sorry. The real you doesn't have those tired, clouded eyes. You used to always aim high, driven by a burning passion. That's the true Thomas. I may not be coming back to the main office, but you fought through the fierce promotion race and became the manager here. You should live as yourself. Look, you have subordinates who truly admire you." As soon as Kyle finished speaking, the employees of the sales department all nodded in agreement. Just then, the office door opened, and a woman entered. It's been a while. It was Kimberly. Actually, I was the one who called her. Let's put an end to this matter here. Kimberly has also agreed to that." When I said that, Kimberly gave a slightly hesitant smile, but looked firmly at Thomas and spoke. About what you said that day, Thomas, you weren't entirely wrong. This project is pretty tough, isn't it? You told me that a woman like me wouldn't be able to handle it and rejected the contract. You actually said that because you were worried about me, didn't you?" Thomas fell silent, seemingly at a loss for words. The project Kimberly had brought that day was significantly larger in scale than previous ones. Thomas judged that the workload would be too much for her as a woman. "I heard you have a daughter and that you're a single mother. Even though she's in high school, she's still a kid. No child wants to see their mother struggling. The part about waiting until tomorrow, that was just a joke. I figured you'd give up and go home, and then send another representative. I never thought you'd actually keep waiting in the rain. I'm really sorry." With that, Thomas bowed his head deeply. Kyle skillfully wrapped up the situation, and Kimberly reported her company that the contract with our company had been secured, bringing the issue to a close. After publicly announcing my position as the next president, I became even more dedicated to my work. But I still couldn't shake a lingering sense of unease. Sensing my restless mood, it was none other than Kyle who spoke up. "Recently, it seems like you're throwing yourself into work to forget something. You've lost quite a bit of weight since the last time we met. Is something bothering you?" As expected of you, Kyle, you see right through me. The truth is, seeing Kimberly reminded me of the past. Does it have something to do with why you never got married? He was as sharp as ever. I scratched my cheek and replied, "Yeah, that's right. I can't forget about her. If part of me still holds feelings for another woman, it would be unfair to enter a half-hearted relationship with someone else." Saying that, I took a sip of the canned coffee I had just bought. The mildly sweet taste reminded me of the first love I once experienced. Could it be that Kimberly is related to that? I couldn't respond to Kyle's question. Kyle, gazing into the distance, began to speak as if talking to himself. "It's not up to me or anyone else to decide how you live your life, but I don't want you to live a life filled with regret. My parents, and I think of you as family. You've always helped out on our farm, and we really appreciate it. Seeing you happy is what we all wish for. So, make a choice you won't regret." Hearing those words, I found myself unconsciously dialing a certain number. A few days later, on a Sunday afternoon, I met Kimberly at the same restaurant as before. You said you had something important to discuss. Kimberly probably thought it was business related since I was the next president of her client company. But that wasn't it. I took several deep breaths before abruptly getting to the point. You know someone named Rachel? At that moment, Kimberly swallowed hard. Rachel. The shocking revelation left me frozen. Then I spoke to her. Please, let me meet her. A month after that promise, I found myself on a train with Kimberly, heading to a specific place. After the train arrived, I put the ticket into the designated slot and exited the gate. Although it had been raining earlier, the sky had cleared up, and a beautiful rainbow stretched across the sky. Maybe our meeting wasn't a coincidence, but something meant to be. I nodded silently at her words and looked at the umbrella I was holding. The old black umbrella I used back in high school was now worn out and barely served its purpose. Still, I wanted to bring it to this place. After a 1-hour bus ride, during which I dozed off, we finally arrived at our destination. After getting off the bus, I followed Kimberly's lead. We finally arrived at a hill overlooking the entire town. This was my hometown, where I had spent my student days at my grandparents' house. Since my grandparents passed away, I hadn't returned to this place. The breeze feels nice here. Yeah, it does. This cemetery was built here because it's considered closer to heaven. Ahead of us, an old, tall tree swayed gently in the wind. At its base was a small cross. Kimberly knelt in front of one of them and spoke. This is where my sister, Rachel, is resting. I swallowed hard. This is a place where the remains of those whose family graves have been closed were relocated. It's also a resting place for people who had no relatives and had no other place to be buried, marking the proof of their lives. Despite the clear sky, light raindrops suddenly began to fall. It's just like that day, isn't it? She must have meant the day we first met. Kimberly opened her folding umbrella while I placed the old, worn-out black umbrella from my high school days over the cross. Rachel, I'm sorry, I'm so late. You disappeared so suddenly, and I thought you hated me. When I found out later that you had a terminal illness and passed away without telling anyone, I felt betrayed. I think I never got into relationships because part of me was always holding on to you. Rachel, I loved you. As if in response to my words, the rain momentarily grew heavier. But it was just a fleeting moment. Mountain weather changes quickly. The rain stopped just as abruptly, and the bright sun appeared, with pure white clouds drifting across the sky. When we were little, our parents divorced, and Rachel and I, as twins, ended up living apart. But when I was 20, I spoke to her just once. She said that just having someone she loved gave her the strength to fight through the hardest times. She knew she wouldn't be able to see him again, but she wanted to tell that person someday, knowing you are happy is my happiness. Before I knew it, transparent droplets were streaming down my cheeks. I couldn't tell whether they were remnants of the earlier rain or my own tears. My emotions were all tangled up. Rachel, why? Why didn't you let me say goodbye? In the winter of my second year of high school, Rachel suddenly moved away. I never imagined that she was living with only a short time left. When I heard through someone else that she had passed away in her mid-20s, I stopped pursuing love entirely. I couldn't bring myself to love anyone else because I never got to tell her how I felt. But I finally said it. Rachel, I loved you. After all those years, I had finally put an end to my feelings. Even though it was no longer raining, Kimberly pointed her folding umbrella toward me. It was like sharing an umbrella together. I guess it's because I'm Rachel's twin. I feel the same way. I know I'm just an old woman now, and it might seem silly, but when you offered me that umbrella the other day, Ryan, I felt a little flutter in my heart. I must have looked stunned, but it didn't feel bad. Maybe it's time I start moving forward, too. As I said that, Kimberly gently offered me her right hand. At first, I couldn't help but see the face of my first love, Rachel, overlapping with Kimberly's, and my emotions became a mess. But the woman standing in front of me now wasn't the same as the one I had loved back then. Kimberly, I want to get to know you. Hearing that, she smiled, brighter and more beautiful than the sun and the rainbow behind her. I placed the peacock flower I had brought in front of the cross. The peacock flower's meaning is always cheerful. It's perfect for Rachel, who never lost her smile. My feelings had come to a close here, but my future was just beginning. Life still had a long way to go, and I felt hopeful about my future with Kimberly.